Well, hello, boys and girls. This is Mr. Broussard. We are going to do another science lesson today. And we are getting ready to do an assessment on photosynthesis, food chains, and food webs. So today I want to review food webs since we've only done one lesson on food webs. So our learning target is I can show how energy flows in an ecosystem by creating a model of a food web. Okay? So let's go over that one more time. So I can show how energy flows in an ecosystem by creating a model of a food web. Okay? So last time, the last lesson that we had was, well, I think I can take the mask off because there is no one else in my classroom right now, and I'm going to save the glasses for later when I have to read the article. So last time you were going either in your backyard or the park, and you were trying to name, or you were trying to identify the different organisms that you saw and then creating a food web. But today I want to really do it a little bit more focused so that we truly understand how food webs work, okay? To do that, we are going to read the article, and now I'm going to need my glasses, and you should have your articles, either hard copy of the article or your teacher assigned it to you. You can click on the link and you can get the article. So I would like to read this article together to make sure that we understand this well, okay? So, food web. To understand how plants and animals interact, how they mingle, how they, have relationships, how plants and animals interact, scientists make diagrams called food chains. And we've done a food chain already. A food chain shows a sequence of living things in which one organism eats the one below it. I'm going to leave the camera for just a moment, and I want to show you one of the food chains that my students created. Okay? So, food chain starting with the sun, then plants, herbivores, carnivores, and decomposers. So most animals eat more than one thing. So to show all the feeding relationships, we use food webs, which are made of many intersecting back and forth food webs. Intersecting food chains. Energy in food can be traced back to the sun. That's why my students over here have that orange link with the sun, because that's the beginning. Living things need a constant supply of energy. The sun provides that energy, which is transformed into food by plants, and we know that process, right? Photosynthesis. Herbivores, animals that eat plants, eat the plants and receive energy. When the herbivore is eaten by a carnivore, or an animal that eats meat, the energy from the herbivore is transferred to the carnivore. The transfer of energy from one organism to another makes up a food chain, right? From the plant to the herbivore to the carnivore, and then we have the decomposers. All living things need food to provide materials for growth. Food chains start with organisms that make their own food, called producers. Plants are the most common producers. Animals are called consumers because they do not make their own food. They eat or consume other organisms. We know all of this. We're just reviewing, and we want to make sure that we are reading articles as well. Okay? A food chain typically only has a few steps, usually 4 at the most. This is because each time one organism eats another, some of that energy is used up and released as heat. In fact, you are releasing heat energy right now as you read this, because your body is burning food to keep warm. Since some energy gets used up in each step of the food chain, there can only be a few steps. Otherwise, there is not enough energy left for the organisms at the top. A food web is a model of interesting food chains. I'm sorry, not interesting. I have to correct that. Intersecting. Okay, I realized that made no sense, so I had to go back to correct myself. So a food web is a model of intersecting food chains. Most organisms can eat and be eaten by many different animals. A food chain wouldn't be able to show this. Food webs show all these connections. They are more complicated but more accurate. In the African savanna, food web shown here, we can see multiple arrows pointing to different animals. The arrows show the directions the energy is transferred. For example, we can see that zebras eat trees and grasses, so arrows from trees and grasses are pointing to the zebra. The arrows pointing from the zebra to the cheetahs, hyenas, and lions tell us that the zebra is eaten by these animals. The lions are at the top of the food web, which means they are not eaten by any other type of animal, except by decomposers when it dies. We call this an apex predator, the ones at the top. One group of consumers that is often not shown in a food web are decomposers. Decomposers are organisms, mostly bacteria and fungi, that break down dead plants and animals, eventually turning them into nutrients that will be added to soil. So, a lot of this information we already know, but I wanted to make sure that we were reading articles as well, not just making explanations, writing explanations, doing pictures, things like that. I want to make sure that we're also doing articles. Okay? So the way that we're going to review food webs today is you are going to use the pictures. I'm going to leave for just a second because I need to grab my bag of materials that I have here, of tools, excuse me. So you have this document, okay, that your teacher printed for you, or you might have it assigned at home. You can print it, okay, and then you will have different organisms there, okay. So you are going to need you're going to need a big cardboard, and you're going to need scissors, and you're going to need glue or tape, okay? Whichever one you have available where you are at, okay? So you are going to cut all these different organisms, okay? So you will cut the organisms. I'm not going to cut all of them. I'm only going to show you what you are supposed to do. So right now I'm cutting the mouse here. And it doesn't have to be that neat, okay? I'm going to cut the mouse. I'm going to cut the lizard. So you're going to need a big cardboard, scissors, tape, or glue. And if your teacher did not give you, if you were not able to get this from a teacher, then you're going to have to print that at home, okay? Or ask your parents to print it for you at their work, and then they can bring it for you. And you can then do the activity at home, okay? I'm not going to cut all of them because I just want to show you what I want you to do, how you are going to understand the way that food webs work, okay? So let's say that you have okay. And we have a sunflower. Oh, my sunflower did hardly print it. Well, you're going to have to trust me that this is a sunflower, okay? So I have that. Let me see. Okay. So then you're going to take your glue or your tape, okay? You're going to get all the animals, all the organisms, excuse me, because they're not all animals. All the organisms that you cut with your scissors, okay? You're going to take your tape or your glue, and you are going to do it on a cardboard This is going to be my cardboard here. I want to show you this, okay? And you are going to take, so I'm going to put the blackberry over here. And let me see, the mouse over here. It doesn't really matter where you put them, as long as they are in your cardboard. A deer over here, and a mountain lion right here, a lizard over here, sunflower. Oh, that sunflower is awful, did not print well. Okay, so you're gonna take all of those animals, all of those, excuse me, I keep saying animals, all of those organisms that you either printed or that your teacher gave you, okay? And that you cut out, and you're gonna glue them or tape them to that cardboard. And then you are going to take either, you can do it two ways, okay? You can have a marker, or you can have yarn. Yarn could make it a lot of fun, okay? And then you're going to start drawing lines or putting the yarn from animal to animal that interact. So for example, the mouse could be eating the blackberries, but also the deer. And maybe if this is a huge lizard, well, I don't know if that lizard could eat the mouse, but we know that they could be eating the blackberries, and also they could be eating some of the sunflower seeds. And over here, we have a deer that is probably going to be eaten by this mountain lion, okay? So that's what you're going to be doing. So you're going to have a lot more than this, okay? A lot more. And so you're going to draw lines, or you can take yarn and go from animal to animal and then tape it. You take the yarn and then you tape it right there and tape it. And you're going to end up with many, 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 many of those either lines or yarn lines all over the place to create a web. That way you will see how energy flows in an ecosystem, not just straight like in a short food chain, but how all of those animals interact, how I said animals again, you're going to have to correct me, how all of those organisms interact with each other to form this whole web of how energy is transferred from organism to organism that originally started with the sun, okay? So now I'm going to give you probably about half an hour. You might need half an hour or more time to be able to create this food web, okay? And then we're gonna come back together. So you can pause the video and then we will come back together to discuss what you did, okay? Go ahead and pause and I will be here. Okay, so I am sure that you have a terrific food web with all sorts of organisms all over the place, with lines going from organism to organism to organism, or yarn going from place to place. So if we go back to our learning target, I can show how energy flows in an ecosystem by creating a model of a food web. This is a model because that actually you don't see that in nature. You won't see animals with little lines or yarn going from animal to animal or from plant to plant, from organism to organism. You will not see that. That's why this is called a model. It helps us understand how something works a little bit better. So today we created a model to show how energy flows in an ecosystem, and the model is a food web, okay? So a food chain is something linear, very simple, and when we create a web, it's a bunch of food chains put together to show how really energy flows in an ecosystem, okay? So I hope that you had a great time creating that model of a food web, and that now you understand a little bit better or much better how energy flows in an ecosystem by showing or by creating a food web that shows how that energy flows. So thank you, and I will see you next time. And remember, you have to be studying for that assessment that is coming in just a couple more days. Bye-bye.